Hello and welcome to the Hub Podcast. My name is Eric Berger, Marketing Communications Manager for VolunteerHub, an organization that helps nonprofits better recruit, engage, and manage volunteers. Thank you everybody for tuning in to this special recorded case study interview. Today I am joined by Molly MacDonald, who is the lead volunteer coordinator for Mercy Chefs, a nonprofit organization located in Portsmouth, Virginia, that is making a big difference across the country. Hey, Molly, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. How are you today?
Hey, Eric, I am doing great. Just very grateful to be here. How are you today?
I am doing great. To get started, I just wanted to chat a little bit about your organization, its impact, volunteers, and then how you are using VolunteerHub. So do you mind kind of talking a little bit about your day-to-day life at Mercy Chefs and then what led you to become a volunteer coordinator?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have been with Mercy Chefs now for a little over 3 years, which is wild. And when I came to Mercy Chefs, I created the volunteer program alongside our communications department. And, the day-to-day life of me as a volunteer coordinator with Mercy Chefs, it has two parts to it. There's an office side and then there's the deployment side. So when I'm here at our headquarters, that is the office side, that's all administration. Basically just making sure that first off, that we're ready for disaster season. Of course, we are a disaster relief nonprofit. So I just want to make sure that on the volunteer side, we are all set to go. That includes, making sure all T-shirts are ready, making sure all of our fun, exciting opportunities that we bring with us to disasters are all packed. And when I say fun and exciting and disasters, that doesn't usually go together. But at Mercy Chefs, we try to go above and beyond for our volunteers. Some of these volunteers, they might have just come from that disaster. They could have lost a lot of their house. They could have been affected by that disaster. Some might just have seen the disaster and wanted to come and assist as well. So what we do at Mercy Chefs in the disaster setting is we want to create a safe and comfortable and just overall fun experience for anyone who is serving with us. What we do at Mercy Chefs is we create hot, fresh, restaurant-style quality meals in times of greatest need. When I'm on a disaster site, we are managing volunteers. Sometimes it's 10 volunteers, sometimes it's 200 volunteers, and it could be anywhere in between. We're making sure everyone, of course, is having that safe and comfortable feel while they're there, but we are also making sure everyone has a job and that everything is running smoothly. When I'm at the office, it is a little different. That is me taking care of our community kitchens. Now, disasters, of course, they can happen anywhere across the world, but our community kitchens, those are located in 3 locations. We have one at our headquarters at Portsmouth, Virginia. We also have one in Nashville, Tennessee. And then we have another one that will be opening June 24th in Dallas, Texas. So I'm just making sure that, of course, we have volunteers there at that location. I'm checking in with our chefs, making sure that they are comfortable, that they feel good with their volunteer load and everything like that. And just trying to, again, bring that safe and comfortable environment to those kitchens as well. We are a disaster relief nonprofit, of course, and our main focus is feeding people. Our founder, Gary LeBlanc, he was the first to say that is our main mission, is to just go feed people. And this could be anyone during a disaster. And so what we do is we hire these chefs who have experience, who've gone to school, who understand the importance of, nutrition. And not only that, but food safety. And they come in and they create these meals. And of course, we do it alongside volunteers. And we have people watching volunteers and making sure that they understand the importance of temperature controls and seasoning and all of that. And we create these incredible meals for disasters. Now, for our community kitchens, food is still the main priority of what we do. And so this is more of a long-term situation, so community kitchens, we're focusing more on the actual area that we're surrounding. So we'll feed schools, we'll feed hospitals. We have fed jail cells before. We've fed senior service centers. We have fed a little bit of everyone, tent communities as well. Again, finding those locations where if someone is in need of a meal, we're going to provide that for them.
And do you know how many meals you guys have served, typically like in a year?
I can tell you overall, if
Oh,
that's,
wow. Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
that'd be great.
So we at Mercy Chefs just turned 17. We celebrated our 17-year anniversary just a few days ago on June the 8th. And so since then, we have served over 25 million meals.
Wow.
It is
Okay.
wild. Yeah, it's crazy, and that's meals going all over the world.
And how many volunteers does it usually take, like per year, to support Mercy Chefs?
So every year we are growing at Mercy Chefs. It's wild, but yes, we are growing. I mentioned that we have served over 25 million meals, and this is wild. We were at 3 million meals in 2020. We hit 3 million. And then from 2020 to 2023, we got to 25 million meals. And with that, of course, comes a lot of hands. So in 2022, we actually had 6,000 volunteers serving over 18,000 hours.
Wow, that is unbelievable growth. Congratulations. So what types of roles do volunteers fill?
Yes. So here at Mercy Chefs, volunteers fill many different roles. When you think about the production that we have at Mercy Chefs, I mean, it is literally a production, like a symphony. So, when volunteers get on site, whether that is a community kitchen or whether that is a disaster site, they come into contact with either a managing chef or a volunteer coordinator like myself, and we will kind of give them the lowdown of what to expect throughout the day. Now, those expectations, anyone can volunteer with Mercy Chefs. We will always find something for someone to do when they come on site. So, for example, when they get there, they're probably going to prepare the food. So what that means is, when you think about serving 3,000 to 10,000 to even 500 people a day, that requires a lot of work. So sometimes when volunteers get there, they'll be assigned to the salad station, or maybe the bread baking station, or the baking station, or they might go and help, prepare certain meats for our smokers that we have. And that could be an all-day endeavor. It's not uncommon for a Mercy Chefs volunteer to cut onions and cucumbers and peppers all day. It's wild how many cucumbers you can fit into a large plastic container, but it is pretty amazing. And so, it's a preparation. And then once we have prepared that meal, whether it's lunch or dinner or what have you, then we actually plate the meal. So what that looks like is we have food service lines, and it's just a normal, stand-up, pop-up table, usually 2 of them, and we will fill both sides of those tables with people, and the food will be right in the middle of the table. So you have 2 service lines going at the same time, and that food line is going and getting that meal out on the plate. And then, of course, we have food delivery. So we have people taking these meals, again, either community kitchen or our disaster relief area, like deployments. They will go out and serve schools or neighborhoods or hospitals or, what have you. So that's a lot of what volunteers have to look forward to with serving with Mercy Chefs. Now, if you have someone who maybe doesn't like the cooking side, maybe they have younger children, again, we really, we try to make sure that all of our volunteers are 10 years and older. There are certain times when, there's parents who, they've lost things and they just wanted to come serve their community. Well, we want to make sure that they feel heard. So what we'll do is we'll set them up far away from the food and, of course, the more hazardous and dangerous things that a kitchen could have. And we'll have them sticker our clamshell boxes. Those are those white food container boxes, and each one of those containers will get a sticker that says Mercy Chefs on it. And we do need them stickered. So it's a great opportunity for people who maybe doesn't really want to spend time preparing those meals to still be a part of what we have to offer.
And let's talk about volunteer management, not VolunteerHub specifically yet, but with as many volunteers that you guys manage each year, I mean, how did you manage volunteers before VolunteerHub?
No. So that's a great question. Shout out to Google Sheets. So yes, Excel spreadsheets galore. Wow. It was, I always thought I was proficient in Excel spreadsheets until I had to do Excel spreadsheets for all of the locations that we were doing for serving. Whole new world. But yes, we would use Excel spreadsheets. We would use Google Sheets. And basically we would just keep them categorized by location. So, at the time we had a community kitchen in McAllen, Texas. So we had one for Texas. Then we had one for our headquarters, our Portsmouth community kitchen. And we also had one at the time for our Florida community kitchen. And so each one had their own, and it would be a daily responsibility to go in and to, volunteers would come in the kitchen. They would sign on a piece of paper, their name and when they basically began their service opportunity and when they finished it. And then I would go in on the electronic side and I would actually put it into our system. So it was a lot of work. It was a lot of just hours spent of just clocking in people and making sure people had their hours counted for. And, when you go on large disasters, that is very difficult to do. I mean, you are already trying to manage, again, 10 to 200 people and making sure, did I get you? Are you accounted for? Oh, you need hours, you need a verification letter. Okay. There were so many little things that you had to keep track. It took a lot of time.
Do you know like how many hours per week were spent trying to manage all those Google Sheets?
Oh,
If you had to guess,
I would probably say like 5 hours, or I would say maybe 7 to 10. I mean, it was a lot, because when you have, like a whole day. So I would say probably 8 to 10 hours. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot.
And so you saw the need for volunteer management software, but when you were actually exploring volunteer management software, what were like the must-haves?
Well, the must-haves, that's a great question. The must-haves, number one, to track hours, to make sure that, when that volunteer gets there, they can just hit a button and their hours will begin, and all they have to do is hit that button and their hours will end. That was a humongous feature that we were looking for at Mercy Chefs for our volunteers. And also just a user-friendly service, one that was just attractive and one that was also just very easy, nothing strenuous, nothing that's too black and white, just very one that you knew that if you were teaching someone else, you had full confidence that they would understand it because it was just a good and user-friendly source.
And so once you made the decision to kind of move forward with VolunteerHub, I mean, what was your experience like from the beginning with training, implementation? How's your experience with support now? Just kind of like what's been your interaction with VolunteerHub?
VolunteerHub has been a breath of fresh air. It really has. It's so like it's great knowing that I can just log on to VolunteerHub, go to our admin page and see who is serving at each of our locations. Know that if I click on a name that I can see all of their hours and all of the, opportunities that they have signed up for. We have what's called a superstar volunteer, and that is those individuals who have just gone above and beyond, whether it's donating and serving or whether it's just giving so much of their time in service. We want to honor them for that. And before we really had a difficult time honoring them. But with VolunteerHub, we've been able to actually track their hours and they understand all they have to do is go onto the site, log in, make sure that they're there, hit that button that they are serving at, this location, and then log out. And it has been an incredible source, a great data source. We have been able to track our data so much better. And we've, of course, even during major holidays, we're able to send out emails and things very easily. And we send out gifts to our volunteers. And before, we had to figure out a way to make sure we all knew, what person was getting what. And now we can just go into the admin notes of each of the users and say what that individual has received, and when we called them, when we texted them, and all of that. So it's been like a huge turnaround, for Mercy Chefs, because it really gives us a more professional pool, I'd say. And it also just, our organization skills have just improved just because of it. And I mean, it can be done in a disaster. And when something works well in a disaster, that is saying something. So it's been amazing.
And I think there's two sides to the coin. So like, how have your volunteers adopted VolunteerHub?
Yes. So before we were using VolunteerHub, we had a lot of regular volunteers who would come into our community kitchens. And when we shifted over to VolunteerHub, I was a little concerned. I didn't know, not everybody likes change. And so I was interested to see what volunteers would say about VolunteerHub. But I mean, I got emails, I would get calls, people would pull me aside, and they would just rave about it. They loved it. They're like, this is so easy. All I have to do is log on. I understand the process. You just sign up. I get the email, the reminder email, all of that. If it's canceled, there's a cancellation email. Like we got an amazing response of just positivity towards it. And even on disasters, people who have never heard of us and it's their first time, volunteering with us, they've mentioned it to me as well. Wow, it's just so easy to sign up with you guys. And, we can't take that credit. That is VolunteerHub. That is for sure.
I think it's safe to say that VolunteerHub has kind of changed the trajectory of how you manage volunteers within the organization.
I mean, even with the landing pages, to have those separate landing pages even, because at our Portsmouth Community Kitchen, we have our regularly scheduled Portsmouth activities, or I should say service opportunities, Monday through Friday. But, during our holiday opportunities, those look totally different. So we can have two separate landing pages and direct people to whichever one they need. And it's just a humongous support.
I usually like to end on this last question, because I think it's kind of a good way to introduce others to VolunteerHub. But what would you say to other volunteer coordinators that are not using a volunteer management solution like VolunteerHub, and they're still using a manual process? Because there's a lot of volunteer coordinators that are still dealing with Google Sheets or Excel sheets and trying to put all the puzzle pieces together. What kind of feedback would you give them as far as the return on investment of a volunteer management solution?
I would tell other volunteer coordinators that, if you believe in whatever organization, nonprofit, whatever it is that you're working for, and if your team believes in that organization or nonprofit, then you need, something like VolunteerHub. Because if you know that your organization is taking off and it's going places, well, that means you're going to be doing more as well. And it's so important to have a professional and just well-versed company come alongside you and just give you amazing support. If anything, it's going to help you in the long run and not hurt you. And, so many people, so many volunteer coordinators could benefit from something like this. Yes, it might be scary, it's new, but again, it's user friendly, and that's what sets it apart. People can use this and train others on it as well. So it's worth it, and it'll save you so much time for you to do other things.
Well, I think that is a great spot to end the interview, but I just wanted to say thank you so much, Molly, for taking the time to talk to me today and talk about your experience with Volunteer Hub. And if you are somebody out there that wants to make an impact, visit mercychefs.com and see if there is a volunteer opportunity in your community.